Thank you. You did good. As far as making something up, you did very good. I sometimes have a nightmare about walking out here and then realize that my fly is open. It's never happened to me, but I haven't seen it done in this, but I have seen it done somewhere where another person was speaking. I picked this topic tonight because I'm an alcoholic. I've been an alcoholic all my life. It's a progressive disease. It progresses from high school when some of my friends were saying, you know, you drink too much. Down to a point of finally, after 10 years of sobriety, I relapsed. And within 2 years, everything that I built up was destroyed. I was down at the bottom. I was wanting to drink by 8 o'clock in the morning. So the fact is, if you relapse generally and you go back to it later, you will pick up where you would have been, not where you ended the last time. So it's very dangerous. I'm going to pass around this book. Anybody wants to glance at it or whatever. That's the 1976 edition of what we call the Big Book. The first one was in 1939. In 39, there was about 100 members of AA. By the time this was published, there was about 1 million in 1976. I've heard since that it's gone up to, this was maybe 15 years ago, but it's gone up to, it's in the millions now, like 5 or 6 million. And it's a leader, the forefront, the inspiration for all kinds of 12-step groups which work. There's Overeaters Anonymous, there's Gamblers Anonymous, to name some of the serious ones. There's various others, you know, like Children of Alcoholics and that, which is not quite as effective, but the ones that are really tend to destroy your life, your sanity, your family, and that have a fairly good success rate because, or a better success rate because the people are more desperate to do it. Even so, in as far as treatment of alcoholics, the best treatment is if a person goes into treatment for 30 to 60 days, preferably a live-in situation, and also it goes to AA and continues with AA. That's the best success rate. The second best success rate is only alcoholics, AA alone. Just go to meetings and start living it if possible. The third one is a treatment without AA. I'm not going to go into the success rates because it's actually kind of discouraging to hear about it, but people come, they relapse, they go it again and again, and eventually they may get it. So the other reason, and one of the main reasons I picked this topic was for today, one of the reasons was that I was recently at a meeting and somebody went like this: are there any alcoholics in the audience? Anybody else that belongs to AA? He held up his hand. This was not an AA meeting. It was a different meeting. And he knew very little about alcoholism in AA, or he would recognize AA stands for Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't ask anybody in public if they belong or not. A lot of people want to keep it private. They're still a little prejudiced against being an alcoholic, and people are entitled to their privacy. So the other thing was, in a group I was at real recently, I think only a couple of weeks ago, somebody mentioned that they had a friend that said they didn't want to join AA because it's a religious organization. It's not. It's a spiritual organization. We're hoping for a spiritual transformation, a spiritual change. But it's not religion. All religions are welcome and all religions do well in it. People of any religion can do really well in it. When AA started, just before it started, there was a substantial person. He had lost his family and all to alcoholism, losing his business. His life was already destroyed. And he went over to Europe and was treated by Carl Jung, a psychologist in the 30s. And Carl Jung spent every day for 60 days with him. with this man. And at the end of 60 days, the guy figures, okay, I'm ready to go. I haven't had a drink for over 60 days now, 62 or so, and I should be ready. I think I'm cured. 2 days later, he was drunk. So we went back to Carl Jung and said, what happened? What happened? And he was a serious alcoholic, what they say in the later stages, starting to get some physical damage. And so Carl Jung told him, was about, there's really no cure for you and other people like you. I've seen this over and over and over. There's no real cure. He says, well, isn't there something I can do? He said, well, a few people have changed. They've had like a spiritual awakening. And the guy said, well, that's great. I go to church. Okay, that's a good start. I'll use this. And Carl Jung said, no, it's not a church or religion. It's a spiritual awakening. And your whole life, it needs to be transformed. And so this man found another man that felt the same way in America. And they sort of kept each other sober and held on. And then they found a third man who went in the hospitals talking to drunks that were either dying or in bad shape, and they found another man that went along with them, and the three of them sort of kept each other sober. And then finally, about 4 years later, they wrote the book. By then they had 100 members scattered across the United States and started getting a little publicity. The publicity made it grow much faster. But AA, I'd like to point out some things. That there's a chapter in the big book that looking through said, we agnostics, or a message to agnostics. And there are chapters, there's groups and clubs in Los Angeles, where I lived for quite a while recently, 22 years, that are set up for agnostics or atheists. And I went to some to see what they had to say. So did a lot of other people that including some conservative Christians, and they trade attitudes. There's no controversy. There's nothing. But the thing about the agnostics, they say why, and they come down, or the atheists, and they say, well, I can't believe in a God that's going to allow little children to be hurt and that sort of thing. And eventually, this is kind of arrogant that you should be able to describe a God and believe in a God and define him yourself. Well, but it illustrated the program still worked because they hung out together with a lot of other people, and they're welcome, and the program worked for them. So it's not necessary to even be religious or believe in a God. Some of them take the group, the idea of the group, as a God. The other things about AA, every group has to be self-supporting from their own contributions. And you aren't allowed to engage in any business. No group is allowed to receive gifts because we don't want somebody else, putting their ideas in. I'll contribute a lot of money and so I'll get some publicity out of it. No, it doesn't work. I just want to say is, I know that AA itself has saved my life. It saved a lot of lives all over. And it's growing, it's continuing to grow. I've been in the Czech Republic very much recently. When I was there the last time, about 6 years ago, I asked one man, I was talking about it, AA, double A, and I spoke a little bit of Czech. His wife spoke enough English that he got what it was. He says, no, I never heard of it. I never had. But there's certainly a fertile ground there for it. And anyway, I hope this has helped somebody to gain a little knowledge. Don't worry about it. It's not a religious organization. If somebody's using that, they're either really afraid of religion or it's another excuse they don't want to join. So take from there. Thank you.
We have 60 seconds on the clock, please.